KEMAR, set.
Coming up in this edition of Inside Sports, we will critique the thrashing of the West Indies cricket team in the just concluded series with South Africa. We'll also look at how they can rebound against Australia and Pakistan. When we return, the discussion begins. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. With me to critique the performance of the West Indies cricket team against South Africa is coach and cricket analyst Kirkland Bailey. Welcome to the program, Coach Bailey.
Thank you for having me, Nodley.
Well, we had an interesting series against South Africa. First of all, what are your thoughts on how we acquitted ourselves, or our cricketers acquitted themselves?
Honestly, it was a bitter pill to take. I think it was an overall disappointing performance by both the white ball team and the red ball team against South Africa.
All right, let us focus more on the test team, and then in the second half we'll look at the T20s. All right, in terms of the team that was selected, do you think a good job was done with that?
To be honest, yes, based on the fact that we had persons who went to Bangladesh and held their hand up and did well. The selectors were put in a spot where they had to give those persons another chance based on the performance and that Bangladesh, they defeated Bangladesh in Bangladesh, and that was a commendable performance. So they had to give like persons like Carl Mears another chance, and Nkrumah Bonner, which they did, Jermaine Blackwood as well. So those persons were given their chance again, and unfortunately they never came off, but I would agree with the selectors for giving them the opportunity.
Okay, was the dropping of John Campbell premature, and the selection of Jayden Seales?
No, honestly, John Campbell has been given a run. While he could have gotten a few more games, he has not really grasped the opportunity. And I have no problems with Shai Hope coming back into the test scenario. Shai Hope is a very talented youngster. Not a youngster, a very talented individual.
Right, he's about 27 now.
Yes, who has performed at white ball cricket, but when you look at his technical competence, I think it's only a matter of time before he comes good at the test level. And
Jayden Seales?
I am happy to see a youngster like Seales coming through the ranks, coming through the West Indies under 19 and doing well. He bowls at good pace and controls the ball, moves it around, and definitely has stuff to work with. And with him and Alzarri Joseph as the two younger statesmen in the pace setup now, I think there's very good hope for the future where that is concerned.
But you said Alzarri Joseph, but Alzarri wasn't selected despite him being around and in the team for quite a while. What do you make of the decision to leave him out of the final 11, especially with Shannon Gabriel not being available and Shamar Holder also being injured?
I was a bit peeved at first, but then I was not privy to be at those training sessions, and I count on the experience of the coaching setup where Phil Simmons is concerned. Alzarri Joseph is now playing county cricket in England, which will only help his development. So even if he's taking a bit of a step back presently based on his performance in training, I have confidence that he'll get it right because he's taking the steps to improve himself over time.
But what would you say to people who say, but Alzarri has been tried for how long, but he just doesn't. He seems to lack the cutting edge. His batting has improved. He's making good half centuries and he's performing, but he wasn't selected to bat. But we need him to get the ball up at people's throats, and he's not doing that.
Well, the setup has to look first at his physical structure to see if he has the capabilities of doing what they want. If the youngster is found wanting with his physical makeup, then they'll have to look at his nutrition with his dietitian, etc., get his weight program right, and get him stronger to be able to do that type of a job. But Alzarri is still a young lad, and it takes time to learn Test cricket. Unfortunately, he is not coming into a system where he has elder statesmen who are outstanding performance. Roach and Gabriel are average performers. When you had youngsters coming in, when you had a Walsh and a Holding coming in, you had a Garner, a Malcolm Marshall for them to learn the craft and have a little bit more time to hone themselves. Here the youngsters are thrown into the lion's den, for want of a better word, almost immediately because we are a bit short for talent, and thus the development process might take a little bit longer because they are learning on the job instead of seeing persons doing it consistently well before them.
There's also the view that he ought to be doing, that is Alzarri, ought to be doing more for himself. He needs to take a greater responsibility. Being resident in Antigua, there's a great Andy Roberts, there is Kenny and Winston Benjamin. And people ask the question, is he making the best of these opportunities to learn from such gentlemen?
Well, that is a question that persons who are very close to him on a daily basis would need to probably offer an answer for us, because definitely one has to also look at the youngster's personality. We have introverts, we have extroverts, and if we realize that he might be an introverted person, then the powers that be in the West Indies setup need to invite some talented and great fast bowlers to sit and have a talk with him. He might not be the one to go over and initiate conversation, because that's not in his personality. But if we realize that, then we need to take steps to help him.
So then there could be an argument, a stronger argument for a sports psychologist in the setup.
Definitely. I think all international teams need to have somebody like that in the setup, especially with how fast the game is now and how quickly persons get to that level. Where you have a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, sometimes they find themselves at that level, and they're left at sea, especially when the other players are trying to secure their game by making sure they have good performances. They're really not having the time to nurture that youngster along. One
more question on the fast bowling. Keon Harding is someone that they had invested in. He's pretty fast. Do you think he'd feel hard done not to have been considered for this Test series based on the investment made in him, his age, and what he had done before?
He might feel a bit hard done, just the same, but it's sports, and if you look at the persons who have been selected, there are individuals that have been performing as well. All right, Gabriel might have gotten injured or is a bit injury prone, but when he's on his song, he's somebody who commands a game in the bowling lineup. Also, KEMAR, which has been our most consistent performer over more than a decade, because remember this is his second sojourn in the West Indies team. Right. So those persons would select themselves based on the performances, especially even going down Bangladesh, right? But then you look at Jaden Seals now. He was in and around the setup as well. And when we see a youngster of that size and displaying such control, and you sometimes you are compelled to give him that early look in, because he is showing more potential to be a special player.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll make a comparison with the bowling of both teams in a little bit. But let us look at the captaincy of the West Indies. Craig Brathwaite. He was credited for the performances in Bangladesh and against Sri Lanka here.
Yes.
Would you say that he continued along that vein, or was there a step back in terms of the regard people have for him?
I think there is a bit of a step back, but through no fault of Craig Brathwaite. To be honest, I don't think he should be the captain of the West Indies team. And I said, I'm not knocking Craig Brathwaite because he didn't put himself there. But when a batsman is technically limited, like Brathwaite is he has to work on his game a little bit more than the others. And when you detract from that by having him have to focus on team welfare, I think his performances are going to dwindle as it goes along.
But he's the same Craig Brathwaite. In fact, prior to him being elevated to captaincy, there were questions about him being in the setup, but he rose to the occasion, did very well in Bangladesh. People gave him credit and felt that maybe the responsibility is helping him. So what is going on now?
The only thing that is going on is that the competition is better, so it demands more of the individual. The bowling setup that South Africa has, even though they are not currently ranked in the hierarchy of Test cricket, is one that the bowlers there can trouble any Test team in the world. Rabada, Ngidi, Nokia, and you have the spinners to come, the Mirage and stuff. You have some players there who can trouble. So they have the tools to work with. South Africa do, and West Indies has shown a tendency to be susceptible to serious pace bowling in recent future, recent history.
And that is a concern, because I want to talk to you about the captaincy, but I can't miss this opportunity to ask you about our susceptibility to quality fast bowling. How is it that we have produced people with express pace in this region and continue to do so to a fair degree? Why are our batsmen weak to pace and even weaker to spin? What's happening?
I go back straight to the surfaces that we are currently playing on. When you look at the surfaces in the Caribbean now, they very rarely get the ball up to chest height. When I was a youngster going to Sabine and being fortunate enough to have a look at cricket on someone's television, or I used to see the ball doing crazy, rearing up and all over the Caribbean. Nowadays the balls tend to flat out, the pitches are flat, and thus the batters, when they make runs, they are not making runs in challenging circumstances. And thus, when you find bowlers who can get the ball to behave in that manner, even if the pitch might not be 100% conducive to it, then they find themselves wanting. Because if you look at the series, the South African seamers made better use of the conditions that were helpful to pace bowling than the West Indies bowlers who are currently from the Caribbean. Reason being, South African bowlers have consistently gotten the opportunity to use these conditions, whether home, right, at home, and thus when they come abroad and they see it, they then can adapt quickly and make the changes. While the West Indies bowlers, we tend to experience these conditions presently when we travel, and even at home now, having them to use, we are almost like visitors trying to catch on, because we have not gotten a meaningful practice at the first class level, schoolboy level of playing on really quick pitches. The pitches are very, very slow in the Caribbean presently.
Have we lost the art of pitch preparation here in the Caribbean?
I would have to say so, because if the pitches are all over poor, I think the West Indies cricket board needs to invest in a sensible creator to head a thrust all across the Caribbean to improve the pitches where we can get some more competitive quick pitches. So that means when we come up against the Australians, the New Zealand, even the Englishmen, we'll be able to perform a little bit better.
I recall a few years ago, I think Prof. Edwards out of Barbados was tasked with something like that to aid in the whole pitch preparation in the Caribbean. Is this something that sounds familiar to you?
I heard about it once, but I don't know the intricacies of the whole setup that they had planned. But if that is so, we still haven't seen the ripple effects, and we are waiting anxiously. Okay,
final question before we go to a break, and you could answer this in about 30 seconds. You mentioned captaincy and Craig Brathwaite. You don't think he should have been? Then who should have been the captain of the Test team?
Honestly, even though J.S. did not go to Bangladesh, when it came back to the home series, I think he should have been returned as the captain. When you see J.S. out there, even now, not being the captain, he commands a certain respect. He's a good moral booster. He's a team leader. You can hear him at slip constantly, jeering on the guys, that type of thing. He's a natural leader also, and he's one who is a more technically gifted person than Brathwaite. So the stress of working on his game, while he has to do it, it is not as paramount of an importance that Brathwaite in his overall performance. Because technically gifted players can take a little bit off the foot off the pedal and still do well.
Thank you, Coach Bailey. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll look at the T20 series against South Africa. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. Still with me in studio is Kirkland Bailey, and we're looking at the T20 series between West Indies and South Africa. In fact, we're looking back at the performances. Kirkland, traditionally, we do better at T20 cricket than we do in the longer version of the game. In fact, some people have suggested that maybe we should just abandon Test cricket and play T20 cricket. Firstly, what do you say to that?
Ironically, we are ranked 7th in Test cricket presently, 8th in 50 over white ball cricket, and 9th in T20. So even though we have performed on the world stage, because West Indies tend to come up and do well when most persons expect us not to, the ranking suggests that the T20 team is the lowest ranked presently of all the 3 teams internationally, presently.
So the view then that we should focus more on T20 cricket is a view that is not informed by statistics.
Yes, it doesn't hold water for me, because look at it, to be honest. Some of the best T20 players in the world are excellent Test players. Kane Williamson from New Zealand, and VIRAT KOHLI. Right? They do well both in the red ball and the white ball, but point of note, they hone their skills in Test cricket before they opted to go into the T20 format, because in order to be a good T20 player, you have to still be technically competent, right? And then you get more expansive as you master the basics. And most players nowadays have aborted the technical approach and are just trying to be unorthodox and effective. And then when good bowlers figure them out, then they are dismissed rather easily.
So basically what we're doing now is a hit or miss, and it shows in the boundary hitting, because in this series there was one match where we had 48 dot balls, then I think we had about 38, and then we had 40, and maybe went back up to 42. As a coach, how would you suggest that we address this?
This is a mental issue with the players, you know. These batters can bat and they can throw the ball around. What we have to encourage is that we have to earmark certain batsmen in the team who are encouraged to play a longer innings, and thus they are the batters that the team would bat around, because we still have to work with what works for us. We are explosive and we are strong, so we can clear the boundary easier than most other teams, but then one has to be selective with the right shot and the right deliveries where you want to execute, and that's where I think we need to have a better think of the game. If you look at Elvin Lewis, while he's a 6-hitter, I think throughout the series he grew a bit with working the ball around, so he will get better at that. And if we encourage it in the team and give them a bit of time, I think they'll get it done.
All right, so you spoke about Evan Lewis. There's also Shimron Hetmyer, who came in latterly. He didn't start out the series, but he came on. And, well, let me ask you the question. What did you make of Shimron Hetmyer's performance? Former captain of our under-19 team. In fact, he captained our winning under-19 team. And many people have spoken about his potential, but his average is in the 20s.
Yes, honestly, his performances leave a lot to be desired. You'd want him to have gone on to being a better player by now. What I think the problem is, I think, to be honest, he likes to take his foot off the gas a lot. If you look at his weight, he tends to be a bit overweight. He's losing it now, but if you even look at him when he was in the IPL the other day, he tends to look a bit chubby. Look at his face. You don't carry that amount of fat when you're a professional athlete wanting to be at the peak of your game. Because when you're are physically wanting, then it will affect your mental concentration, and thus you will make mistakes rather easily. And I think that's where you see now that because he is not focusing much on the physical aspect, because remember that they had issues with him with fitness tests recently,
right.
and this is going to affect his performances on the field, and he's spoiled in a good way for himself. But looking at West Indies cricket, where he has earned so much money already, having not been doing well for West Indies, but just in the T20 format, going to the IPL, I think this is second or third run, he has played in. So when you see the youngsters earning this type of money, sometimes they lose focus and then just say, hey, I'm enjoying it a bit.
But does this speak to indiscipline and a lack of professionalism? Because Evan Lewis suffered that fate earlier. He seems to have made some adjustments. But we also have people like our own O'Shane Thomas, and this has been said for quite a while. What is going on there?
The youngsters haven't gotten some success or relative success and having the cash to handle. Sometimes they lose focus. Young men, you know, they tend to go astray sometimes. And this is where you would need senior players to encourage them to stick it through and to show them that there's a lot more to achieve, not just the financial aspect, but the pride of being a West Indies cricketer. You would want to continue the legacy that has been laid before you, and to make sure that during your time of playing for the West Indies, the West Indies cricket team would improve. And I think some of the youngsters, to be honest, they don't have that drive. They're just probably looking at the bottom dollar of what goes into the pocket. And if they approach it in that way, while they might be successful for a year or two, they are eventually going to lose out, because that fire, that innate drive to go and improve yourself would not be there. And they are hungry persons trying to get to where they are consistently.
But how hungry can one really say that they are when this hunger doesn't drive people to work hard? Chris Gayle is 41, Dwayne Bravo is 37 going on 38, and they're still performing better. But what better example could they ask for than from these men and their longevity?
Well, that's a very good point. And what these youngsters, sometimes you might have to check up and remember that Bravo has been out of the setup for a while. He has just recently gotten himself back in. Chris is on his way out and will always be that shoulder to lean, and I see that's this type of personality. But I think the youngsters have a very little excuse, to be honest, right? Because they grew up on seeing persons while earning still giving off their best to the West Indies. So they should adapt suit. But I don't know if it's that the fact that they are only looking at the T20 format as the way up because of the huge financial spin-off that it offers, and thus technically they are being found wanting when they play other forms of the game, and it affects them overall. So they have to look at themselves, those young players, and to see how best they can change to have them some longevity in the sport.
Could it be that it's a fast food culture mentality that's overtaking the Caribbean, where they're into instant gratification and not into processes?
I would have to say so. And looking at social theories and stuff that I have been privy to over the years, I would have to buy into it that when groups that persons that are congregate together, have a change in mindset, then it spins off on the children and the wider society, and then you might have a whole complete change in mindset of a country or even a region. And I think we are suffering from that. Remember too that we have more competition now with the sporting dollar, where track and field has gone on to a new level. We were successful in track and field from a long time, but because of how well they have done in the last 10-15 years, persons have gravitated towards it, and that hampers cricket as well, because we lose persons who have the talent to play the sport who might opt to do another one, and then when viewership falls and sponsorship dollar falls, then it trickles down to purchase enough gear. Because I'm a coach at a high school, and we used to get shirts from ISA, right, to play cricket. Over the last 10 years, I have not recalled getting a single shirt from ISA. We have to be buying the shirts for the youngsters, so the schools have to find more money again.
So there's very little investment in
sir.
it. But there are bright sparks and there are positive news coming through. Looking at OBED MCCOY, and you did mention Jaden Seals earlier. Let me ask you about OBED MCCOY. Under 19 representative, got injured, replaced by KEMAR holder. Coming back into his own, what do you make of his performance?
I had to smile when I saw him bowling and using his head, changing up his deliveries and stuff. I think that he's a perfect replacement for Dwayne Bravo when he finally decides to walk away. And I'm happy that he got a chance, or is getting a chance to share the same stage with Dwayne, so he can hone his skills right there and replace him wholly and solely when he leaves not too long from now. He's definitely one for the future in the T20 format of the game, or the white ball format of the game. And if he continues to work, he'll do very well for the West Indies. All
right, so we've identified one bowler. What about a batsman, a young batsman who you believe can make it to the next level? We're not talking about Shea Hope.
And honestly, if you can still consider Hetmeyer young, he has the range of shots and the ease of playing that if he gets focused and gets fit, he will contribute to the whole dynamics of the West Indies batting. But the batsmanship in the Caribbean now is a bit wanting. And as I said before, we have to correct the pitches and the mentality of the batters in an effort to get it back up.
All right. With all that's been said, our next series on the shorter version of the game against Australia, how do you see us doing against them? It's a revamped Australia team, but not weak. But how do you see us doing against them?
It will be a tough series. Knowing what Australia brings to the table and how they approach cricket, they'll come playing tough cricket. And to be honest, the way the West Indies played recently, it leaves a lot to be desired. They lost some sloppy games against South Africa. All the scores that they were supposed to chase down was basically 160, 170 scores. You'd expect them to get those at home. And what I'm hoping now, that pride comes in and kicks in, and West Indies is very, very dangerous when that kicks in, and they get a renewed drive. One thing for certain, these Australian seamers will pose a challenge as well, and they have Zampa and some other guys who bowl this white ball pretty well. So West Indies will have to raise the game a notch in order to be competitive against Australia.
I've seen Darren Bravo around the squad. Is there a place for him, you think, in this T20 and 50 over game?
I would more see a place for him in a 50 over setup. I don't see Darren Bravo playing, doing well in the T20 format. He will stroke the ball around, but then at the end of the day, haven't gotten a start. You would need somebody who has the ability to be expansive and brutal at the end. So say for example, he has batted through most of the innings. Those last 20 balls are stuff, so when he'd want him to be more expansive. I think he might find himself wanting there. And what hampers teams' progress in the T20 is when a new batter has to come in with limited balls available and has to hit right away, he tends to often lose his wicket as well, and the score doesn't really accelerate. And
finally on that bit, but isn't he someone who the team could bat around, because he has the ability to stay there and he could also change gears? He maybe struggles against express pace, and that could be addressed, but in terms of spin bowling, he's quite good. So could he not make the adjustment or be helped to make the adjustment to serve the team?
But remember that when teams find individuals' weaknesses, as soon as that batter steps to the crease, they have bowlers waiting to exploit it. So Darren Bravo, while he's okay against spin, he can be more expansive against spin compared to spin bowling. During his stay off the wicket, he might be dealt a steady diet of pace bowling to limit his ability to be expansive and to score freely. And that's what good teams and good captains do. They will save a bowler just to make sure when that batter gets there, he can bowl to him.
But if we are to become a good team, then we could do the opposite. Prepare him to deal with that diet of fast, short pitch bowling so that he becomes equipped. Couldn't the opposite be true?
I would want to think about preparing a younger player.
Okay.
Darren Bravo has been around so long, he should have an innate drive to get himself prepared to be a better performer. No, because he has been around the setup for at least 8 years, in and around, in and out. So he should have that innate drive to get himself done. He's older than all the younger guys and all that. So he has gotten a run, to be honest.
Okay, Clifton, it was Kirkland rather. We're getting really, so it's becoming a riveting conversation. We're getting into it, and there's much more that we could have spoken about, but that's all the time we have for this episode. And with me in studio was Kirkland Bailey, cricket coach and analyst. I'm Nodley Wright. Thanks for joining us, and see you again soon.